Have you ever thought to yourself that you want to start a YouTube channel, but you have no idea about your niche? You're just confused. It's like, man, what is my niche? I love to do a lot of things. I think that's one of the biggest things that holds me back as well, is not knowing what my niche is and then getting stuck. Like, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. And then just going like, that's not it. So in this video, I want to give you what I believe is going to be a great way to think about your niche, and also to something that I think will separate you from everyone. Because I think that's what the biggest thing, right? When we're talking about a niche, we're like, how do I separate myself, but still classify and identify myself so that people know where to find me? I think that we should first talk about why we're even asking this question. I think for most of us, we're trying to find a path to least resistance. We want to make sure that no matter what we do, that we're successful. And so therefore we're, spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's my niche, what's my way that I'm going to be successful. You are going to be the most successful at being you. Now, I know that's hard to hear for a lot of us, including myself, because I feel like, hey, who am I? Why do I need to be successful at being myself? Like, nobody's going to want to listen to me. But that's not true, because one of the most powerful components to you is your story. Your story is your niche. All right. So one of the biggest things you're always going to hear from marketers, YouTubers, content creators is you're always going to hear them talk about good content. Everybody's like, hey, if you want to, blow up on YouTube, if you want to get more subscribers, then you need really good content. And I think we all agree with that. However, nobody really tells us what good content is. What makes good content? And so in this video, I'm going to tell you what makes good content. I'm going to simplify the process, and I'm going to show you how you can be doing the same thing right here and right now. And not just you, you're not alone. It's me as well. You are my audience. I'm speaking to myself in this, and this is going to be huge. So the simplest and the best way to put it, good content is a good story. Now, what is a good story? A good story has certain ingredients and a certain structure that it follows in order to be a good story. Think about any movie. Every single movie, the person was sitting there writing the story. This is going to happen. This story is about a person who takes place in this area, who meets this person, who winds up over here. And, they have it all written out. It's a story. It's a structure to the story. It's no different than the content you create. It has to be a good story, which means it has to follow the structure. I'm going to give you a simple way to understand story and a path, a process to use it in your own videos. But before I do that, let's first talk about niche or niche, however you want to say it. This one is promoted a lot. And I see so many people, you need to niche down, riches are in the niches, all this kind of stuff. And while I do think there's a good application of that, I think that for a lot of us who are just trying to figure out and find our voice and figure out our story, we have a little bit of a hard time with that. And sometimes it could be hard to understand, what is my niche? Like, really, what is it? Like, is it filmmaking? Is it a certain hobby or activity or sport or person or age range? Like, what exactly is my niche? That's such a big question that people continue to ask over and over. And the reality of it is your niche is you. And you have to learn how to carve this out so that people can be attracted to it. Now, if you're anything like me and so many other people I know, you're going to say like, man, there's so many things I do. There's so many things I enjoy. There's so many things I love. Like, how do I pick just one? That could feel like the most difficult thing to do ever. But listen, you don't have to. You actually don't have to. But what you do have to do is you have to pick a story. And you have to learn how to tell that story over and over again. So every good story has these components. The first component is an audience. You have to figure out who this is for. What kind of people are like that? Now, the interesting thing about this is it doesn't have to be an age range. It doesn't have to be, some sort of demographic like that. It can be a thought, or it can be something where it's like, hey, people like this usually do things like this. Right? It can be more of a tribe. It could be more of something where it's just based upon what a certain circle of people, what those people do. It could be all different kind of nationalities and ages and all different other things, but it has to have a central idea. That's your audience. The next thing is you have to understand a particular desire. What is a desire that is shared by all of those people, including yourself? And this is where you're going to hear the advice about people saying like,
hey, if you don't enjoy it, don't pick that niche because you're going to burn out and it's not going to be good. A story is best told by a person who shares that same desire, or else they kind of just are lacking some of the enthusiasm. They're kind of disconnected from telling that story because they're not quite attached to it. You know, I was just watching a video by MKBHD, I think that's his name, Marcus Brownlee, right? I'm not a huge, not to say I'm not a fan of his, I just don't watch a lot of his content and haven't really. But I know a lot of people do, and he's a big time YouTuber and all that. And so I was recently watching a video that he did on a Red camera. And I noticed in the comments, somebody made this comment and they said, man, I have no idea about that camera. I have no idea about video, but I really enjoy watching you just get excited about this piece of equipment. And that's what telling a good story will do, is it will relate to the people. But when you share that interest in that desire, people who don't even share that interest are just going to want to watch you. It's a good story. It's like, this dude really cares about this kind of stuff. And I can tell. And I like watching him because he's happy and it makes me happy. And you know, it's just good. It's a good story. So you have to share a desire. The next thing that you need to have is you need to have problems that person is going to encounter. What kind of problems come up? That's actually the whole purpose for this video. Is I was like, man, I was actually watching another video and the guy was talking about how he delayed putting off starting a YouTube channel for a couple of years. And really he was trying to find his niche and he couldn't find it and all this kind of stuff. And everything he was saying, it was like, yeah, I relate to that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I feel that way right now. And then I was thinking, what's the best way that I could communicate a message to people just like me who are having the same struggle, people that are just like him, that are having that same struggle. And I thought, man, this is really the truth about a niche, and I need to make a video about it. The next thing is a plan. You have to have some sort of plan in your story. Like, what is it that you're going to tell somebody to do? If they're like, okay, you know, I want to, you know, I'm having trouble finding a niche. Let's take this video, for example. You know, for me, my plan to you is to understand these other components of telling a good story and learn how to do it. And that is your niche. Then you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? So you have to have a plan, some sort of plan that you're going to help that person who's in that story. Maybe it's even just you, how you overcame a particular struggle or problem in your life. The next thing is a process. There needs to be some sort of process. Every story has a process. You know, think about that person who's trying to win the World Series and he meets that old baseball player who's going to help him get along the way. You know, he was on his way, but he got an injury and he never accomplished it. And so therefore he's going to show him all the things that he learned and everything that he was, you know, that he knew up until that point, and he's going to pass it off to him. Right? You got to give somebody a process to go through in order for it to be a good story. Then they feel like, oh, this is rewarding. Even if you're watching somebody else go through that process. You know, this is one of the reasons why I actually started out this video with me just walking down the street, because what that's doing is it's actually showing the process. I had this idea, I had this thought, and I just pulled out my phone. And while I'm in my office and everything's nice and got the lighting and all this kind of cool stuff, it's probably not as compelling as me walking down the street with my phone out talking to myself. I got a better camera. I got better lighting. I got a nicer microphone. Everything's all controlled, super nice. But it's probably not as compelling as those first couple clips, which were meant by design to kind of hook you into this video. And the reason why is because it's not really telling a story. I'm just sitting in an office, you know, having a conversation with you. Just a side note of this is actually where you're going to see the biggest game changer in you connecting with an audience. See, this is the part that people don't really want to do. They don't want to show their process. They just want to jump into a nice environment with lighting and all this kind of stuff. And they just want to go, hey, let me tell you about some stuff. They don't want to show their process. They don't want to show their failures. They don't want to show how they were able to make certain things happen. They don't want to show what it looks like behind the scenes. They don't, because it's vulnerable. And so that means this: if most people aren't doing it, you can set yourself aside by doing it. For a good story, people want to see that process. The last thing is a destination. Every good story has a destination. You know, where are you trying to wind up? Where are you trying to go? Like, what are you trying to achieve? When an audience feels connected to that destination, whether they want it for themselves or not, they're automatically going to have an emotional response to it. And this is important because this is kind of where it covers up your ability to, you know, really have to connect with everybody's mind and brain and thoughts. When you have that shared destination, people will just root for you even if they don't want it for themselves. They're like, oh man, he's trying to get that job promotion, or he's trying to go this place, or he's trying to do this thing. And man, that's super cool. And it'd be cool if he did that, because I can tell he really wants to do it. And so I support him in that. A destination has to be clear. You know, think about a movie that you've watched, and you ever watch a movie and you're just like, where is this going? Like, what is he? Okay, he's 1 minute he's running away from people. The next minute he meets a girl. The next minute, you know, he's trying to get a job. Like, what does this dude want? Like, I don't understand. And when you don't understand the destination, everything else before it is very, very hard to understand. It's hard to connect with if you don't know why they're doing what they're doing. You know, you've probably heard of Simon Sinek and his book and his TED Talk, you know, about why, having your why. It's really important. It's a deep rooted connection that each of us has to have a purpose, a meaning behind the things that we're doing. Like, why do you want what you want? Like, I need to understand that in order to really connect and relate with you. So especially in today's day and age where content and content creators are growing in numbers, I believe one of the biggest ways that you could set yourself aside, and not only just set yourself aside, but also give yourself the momentum to start creating content, is by not worrying so much about your niche, but really focusing more upon your story and your storytelling. Who is this story for? Who are you trying to relate to? And how can you include all of these ingredients in order to create a good piece of content, AKA a good story?